Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7. That was my number in high school, so maybe this will be lucky for us. We'll see. You know, I've learned over time that when somebody's talking about something you really don't want to talk about, you just can always throw in there, hey, I knew this guy once, and then just pretty much make up whatever you want to, and they won't listen to it. They'll get off track. And you don't have to talk about the uncomfortable thing anymore. Coach, like we do every week, tell everybody where you grew up and where you're from. Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA. Proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast with the man of constant sorrow, your boy Mox, and my very special guest today is the Executive Director of the Georgia Fired Football Coaches Association. It is an honor and a privilege to have you on the podcast today, sir.
Honor and privilege as well. Happy to be here.
Well, the first segment we're going to bring to you is brought to you by Bubba and Earl's Moving Company. Remember that you are always just two men in a truck away from a better situation. Or in this segment, Form Bs. And we're going to discuss the hypocrisy of Form Bs and all things GHSA. As the director of the Fired Football Coaches Association, the executive director, I didn't mean to mess up your title there, but I'm sure your organization has a pretty strong opinion and stance on Form Bs and the hypocrisy of all things GHSA.
Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'll let it slide on the nomenclature of executive director versus director, but here's the thing, when it comes to Form Bs serve a purpose, and to me and to our organization, our question is always, is it in the benefit of the kid? Are we benefiting the kid in the specific scenario, or are we just allowing people a form to figure out how to break the rules and not enforce the rules? Because there's people that go through these forms every single week or every single month, every single off season. And you have the Gainesvilles of the world, you have the Miltons, you have you name it. They are going through these and they're getting 55 Form Bs done, 35 Form Bs done, and not one of them get denied. Meanwhile, you've got, Podunk, county school that sends in 3 Form Bs and all 3 get denied. And I think that it's one of two things. One, it's the education piece of the counseling departments and athletic departments of, the schools that get these turned down. Maybe Gainesville just knows how to get them done better. Maybe these bigger schools just have a counseling department that understands paperwork better than all these other schools. And if that is the case, heck, Glazier is always looking for speakers. They're always looking for presenters. So I'm of the opinion that those counselors, those people who fill out those paperworks, man, we'd really benefit from seeing how y'all do it. The other point is, when it comes to actually, enforcing the rules that we have in place, right? We have tried numerous ways to restrict some of these move-ins and some of the recruiting, but we just don't enforce the rules. We have 6 people down there at the GHSA, and I get it. They're stretched thin. They can't go investigate everything. But as the representative for the GAFFCA, I'll extend an invitation we are more than willing to be an extension to help investigate these things and report back. All we require is a gas supplement and a badge and, maybe a red and blue light just to get us through traffic. But we'll be more than happy to investigate these things and report back our findings, because that tells people that you care and that you're actually going to hold people accountable when they break the rules.
Well, I think for years we've known within the business, we know who does what and how it goes. And it's not like this is a new thing. This has been happening since the 1930s in LaGrange and Valdosta and places like that. There were always the city school and the county school, and there have been people being recruited for years and years and years and years. This isn't a new thing, but what is a new thing is the seems like there is an uneven amount of these people. They're blatantly going out and doing this, and they don't make any bones about it and tell you, yeah, that kid's at this school this year, he was at this school that year, this kid over here is coming here from another place. I mean, I suggested that when we do reclassification, we use the Form B rule. And the Form B rule is pretty simple. We can set a number, whatever the average Form Bs are for a classification, your size. And if the number's 10, just for math purposes, if you have 10 or more, we'll put you in a super class. If y'all want to have that many Form Bs, great. Y'all can all get together and y'all can play each other. We talked about reclassification on equity. Well, you would be equitable. You all have the same, laissez-faire attitude toward Form Bs. Y'all go get all you want, and we'll put y'all in a super class. And we don't care how many kids you have in your school, because if you're a single A school and you've got 17 Form Bs, good. You can go play those big schools that have 17, 20, 30, 76 Form Bs, because you're all doing the same thing. That's equitable. If it's 8 to 10, we're going to bump you up 2 classifications from whatever your number says it is. And if it's 6 to 8, we're going to bump you up 1 classification. And if you have under 5 or 6 or whatever the number is, then you can just stay where you are, because that's probably legit. But you better make sure you use those 5 Form B. And those Form Bs, the Form B classification under the Man of Constant Sorrow plan is it's for all athletics. You get 10 Form Bs for the whole athletic program, male and female. So you better use them right. You better work together with your AD and your principal to make sure you're getting the right athletes in. But if you want a true, they were talking about competitive balance. If you want it to be competitively balanced, well, then everybody that's got 10 or more Form Bs or whatever the number is, we're going to put y'all all together, because y'all are competitively balanced. You're all doing the same thing. But that's too much like right and makes too much sense and would probably get me working for the GAF CCA quicker than anything else.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I love the idea. I definitely think it's a good idea, and to me, like you said, it makes a little bit too much sense. And again, like with anything, when rules are around, people are going to break them. And I'm not knocking, the folks that are getting away with it, right? Like that again. If I could get kids to move in and get eligible and help win football games, I wouldn't be the executive director here. But I'm not good enough at that piece. Clearly. And so either we open border it, like the state of Florida, for instance. If you want to wake up every day, drive from Valdosta to Buford to Valdosta, or wherever, and you have a mode of transportation there, go right ahead. Limit the transfers. Just limit the transfers. You can't transfer every single year. But if you can get from point A to point B without the need of the yellow school bus taking you and dropping you off, go right ahead. But let's stop the charade of bona fide moves, because the only thing that's changing is people are better at breaking the rules. You're making people be more creative, but we got some creative football coaches out there. We got some creative counseling departments, because the reality is schools know that the football program being successful raises all ships. raises all ships. People, more money comes in for the other programs, and more eyes are to your school, and it's a great marketing plan. But let's stop this charade that we actually give a crap about the integrity of the game, and just, hey, let everybody do it.
Well, I noticed on your account the other day, Executive Director, that you came across some information regarding one of those schools in the northern Athens area up there. And for your organization to be able to get a hold of that kind of material and that much information that is very, very, the information you received, not that you came up with, that you received from someone, for it to be that in depth and in detail of what was going on in relation to these Form B situations, you would think that one of the 6 people at the JHSA could do that as well.
Well, and my, and when I received that, my first thing about it was the person who sent that email and copied all those people, all the coaches and all the admins that were, and athletic directors that had gone against, this particular school. Well, honestly, it doesn't matter. It's North Oconee. North Oconee had the email, but it's about North Oconee. And the reality is the account was the ghost of, NOHS. And here's the thing. Them sending a very detailed and, probably mostly true stuff. But the problem for them is they weren't man enough to just put their name on it, and now it just sounds like gossip. Now it's just trying to stir up stuff, even though those are legitimate, maybe complaints, concerns, or situations. The reality is it came across as a parent of a kid that got benched for a kid that's a 5-star and going to Georgia, and not an actual, I care about the integrity and the of the game and integrity of my school here. I think that's what bothers me. It's them not being able to put their name on the complaint, and I think that's been swept under the rug, definitely. But winning solves a lot of stuff, and North Oconee keeps winning football games. So, until somebody makes that drive up, from the south there and finds North Oconee and Bogart, I don't. It's going to be much ado about nothing.
Well, speaking to the hypocrisy of the GHSA, there seems to be year in and year out, there's all kind of complaints and finger pointing about Metro Atlanta and North Georgia schools and the recruiting and all of that, but they sure had no problem going after Appleton County last year. What are your thoughts on that as the executive director of the Georgia Fire Football Coaches Association?
Well, I definitely think that, heck, honestly, part of me thinks they might just had a bone to pick with Appleton County, if I'm being honest with you, because they definitely have a lot more to service their time up here in North Georgia at times. And part of me just kind of thinks that, again, they choose what they want to come down on. There's no consistency. And I think every coach, whether you're on the right side of it or wrong side of it, would like consistency. It's like the NCAA, right? The NCAA is a toothless organization, right? There is no penalty that they can wager on any university, right now that plays football, because they don't sanction the championship. They don't really have any power. And, what, you're going to remove their wins? The games are already played. Games are already played. And, the result's the result. But again, I think they kind of went out of left field to go after Appleton County when, boy, I'll tell you, there was a laundry list of complaints from a lot of places in North Georgia. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, one would think that it would be a whole lot easier to prove your case against the North Metro schools than South Georgia schools where you're 30 miles away, 40 minutes away from being able to move somewhere. But I agree with you. Sometimes it does appear that they seem to pick and choose what they want to enforce and when they want to enforce.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that closes up that segment of the program right there, and we're going to move on to our next topic, which is brought to you by Jimmy Joe's Quick Sack. Stop in at Jimmy Joe's and get you a yoo-hoo and some pork rinds on the way to your next game. As we talk about power rankings and playoff reclass, if you go in and mention this episode, they might just give you something for free, because that's how the playoff ranking system is going to go now. Everybody gets in, everybody gets a trophy, everybody is welcome to the party. With 32 teams scheduled to go in, there are going to be some teams and some regions that put 8 teams in, and 5 of those teams are going to have losing records and have no business getting anywhere near a playoff game. As a matter of fact, after next Friday, they should be taking the costumes up. But I'm sure, just with everything, like everything else, the executive director of the Georgia Fire Football Association has some opinions regarding reclass and the power rankings as they pertain to high school football in the state of Georgia.
Well, to be honest with you, the power rankings, like most things, there's good and bad. From my standpoint, I think that we're running into a situation where the intended purpose of it might miss the boat in some areas. But to me, my unpopular opinion is I think too many teams can make the playoffs now. I don't know if there's 4 teams in every single region that should make the playoffs. There's regions all around, Georgia where, the 3 and 4 seed are not very good football teams, especially up here in North Georgia. That there's in almost every classification, you can pretty much knock that 4 seed out right away. Now that's different down there, in the Lee County region and that region where you got 4 teams that could all go and play for a state championship. But, you take who I think last year was Lee County's region matched up with, the Region 8 up here, and that was a clean sweep. You had Houston County come up here and put up 60 points on the 1 seed, Clark Central. And this year, Clark Central might be the dang 4 seed. And I just think that there's going to be some unintended, consequences at times. But again, I don't think that every region should have 4. And I think 32 is too big of a number, but they're never going to shorten that number, even though I wish they would, because the quality of football games would be a lot better. I mean, heck, I'd be all for them shortening the number of teams to, 24 teams, and backing up the start of the season so we have less lightning delays at the beginning of the season. But the reality is they're probably not going to do that. I think in single A through triple, it'll be very similar. I think that what they need to do is use a little common sense when it comes to the bracket, just because last year in, I want to say it was AAA, you had multiple times, I think it was Jefferson side of the region, they ended up playing, I think they had to play Cherokee Bluff and Oconee County maybe in on their way to playing for a state title. Now, those are 2 teams that they had already played. They had avenged the loss to Oconee and, had another run-in with Cherokee Bluff, who they beat by 30 earlier in that year. And so I just think that when you look at the bracket, you can put these teams in places that make sense and not have them run up against teams they've already played just a few weeks earlier. So if we can find a way to look at the bracket, look at how to kind of space it out a little bit. You're probably going to have a situation where, yeah, a team that played all classifications higher than them might get the benefit of the doubt. But again, I lean back to you can only control what you can control. And, a team that's in a terrible region, they're the 1 seed this year, they can't control that the other teams are terrible. So, are you going to knock their power ranking just because of how bad their region opponents are? That's where I have an issue with it. I do think we need to have a little bit of common sense put in here. Maybe, heck, bring back the dang BCS for high school football since they're not using it for college. Well, instituted here, and the JFFCA we will be the official power ranking provider of the GHSA playoffs as long as they, I guess, throw our name out there a couple times. We'll be happy to do it.
Well, the only things I'd like for you to keep in consideration on that, if they do decide to go with that, is what you said, a little common sense. One thing that I don't like about it is in the old days, region champs, if you lost the region championship game, the only way you could exact revenge on that bunch is usually the state championship game. That was the only guarantee you could have that you would play them again. And, well, that pretty much shows you that your region was the strongest because the 1 and 2 rematch for the state championship. So a lot, like you said, just some common sense with the brackets is one thing. And the other thing that I don't like that the power rankings don't take into consideration is your power ranking versus head to head. For instance, right now, as we sit and talk this day, Bleckley County lost to Dodge County. They are ahead of Dodge County, even though they have the exact same region record. Dodge County has yet to play Dublin, which will happen this week, so that could change. But as it stands right now, they have the exact same region record, and they lost the head-to-head, but they're ranked ahead in power rankings because apparently whoever they played for their one non-region game has had a little bit better season than whoever Dodge County played for their region game. So the head-to-head, I think, just as far as the power rankings goes, that doesn't make sense. And I don't like the idea of the first or second round you playing a region opponent again. So I agree with you on that. I think that's definitely on that. Now, what is your association's thought on the coming reclassification as we go back to the old? There is no small single A and big single A. There's just going to be double A and everything like that. And as we reclass, I've always laughed and thought that sometimes when they redraw those maps, I don't think they have a map when they make some of these regions. What are your thoughts on the reclassification?
Well, they definitely don't have a map. And if they do have a map, I got to be honest with you, I never want to be in a situation where we're lost and they got to find our way back to the main road or something. But, the reality I see is, I like going back to the old way we did it because I got to be honest with you, the small single and, D8, D1 and D2, like that's confusing. That is very, and maybe I'm just not a highly intelligent person, but having single A and double A and going all the way up to 7A's fine by me. I like that. It's a lot easier to digest and understand. What I would like to see though is, the private school issue, and I lump it almost with the city schools versus the county schools at times. But the biggest issue is up here in North Georgia, you have Prince Avenue, Athens Academy, Hebron Christian. You've got a ton of private schools, Wesleyan and your Blessed Trinities and all of these where, again, it is a different world. That's a different world than any public school. And to me, my recommendation, especially if they're up here in North Georgia, heck, they've got the funds. They can travel. they can go and play a all private school region because, up here, I get it. It doesn't factor into the playoff ranking or whatever. Yeah, but a public school team's still going to go and get their teeth kicked in by a bunch of future accountants, and it's going to be an issue. To me, let those guys who have given some kids some free tuition to come and make their football team better in the name of our Lord and Savior, and let's figure out a way to let them, have that holy war to themselves, right? Like, let them all do those things, and they can figure out their non-region schedule. If you want to play them, if you're, the Alpharettas of the world and the Gainesvilles and the Clark Centrals and the, North Gwinnett's and all those, if y'all want to play them, go right ahead. That'll factor into the power ranking as well. Maybe you give somebody a bump for playing a private school because their rosters are different. But it's impossible, I mean impossible, to put them in, triple A, double A, single A private, whatever, however you want to do it, because single A private is not the same. I mean, again, God love them, but, Heber in the last 2 years, I mean, he knew how to get kids in there, and they boat race kids. And they recruited better than the other private schools. They recruited better in Prince Avenue. And Greg Vandergrift said, dang, I can't compete with that, and he left. And God bless him, and I hope he's enjoying his time in Tennessee, but that's the reality of private school. You've got to go out there and replace your roster, just like they have to do in college football. So to me, they play a different version of football. So they should be competing with one another, and they can mandate prayer before the game and after the game all together with one another and go from there. But as for, everything else, I think we've got to factor in, again, your FTE count and all that nonsense that people can lie about for, whatever numbers they want. But, the out of district and in district stuff is kind of frustrating in and of itself. But yeah, my biggest bugaboo is definitely going to be with the public versus private, kind of, and how to slot those private schools.
Well, from the private schools having to turn over their roster every year, it sounds a whole lot like what's going on in some of the bigger classifications to revisit our Form B discussion earlier.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. But the benefit that those, I've never seen more kids have, I'm excited to attend this school, next year. And they're a high school kid. They live in Florida and they're coming up here to play high school football, or, I'm signing with this school or that school. And it's really the thing that's frustrating about it for my organization, especially, is they get away with it and they think that it's, man, we're just smarter than these people. And maybe they are. And again, maybe they are. But to me, I would rather you just come flat out and say, yeah, 100%. We recruited them. They decided to come up here. And guess what? They found a house. Whether they did or not, I don't care. But the thing is, don't say you didn't reach out to a kid when, I mean, we're not naive. We're not stupid. Good on you for being able to, address the need that you needed to address in the off season, because, I mean, right now we got teams that are playing for region championships that, these kids, they want to sit there, the dang coaches are talking about, like, getting revenge on team they lost to last year. And, I mean, heck, you lost to them last year, but these kids didn't lose to them last year. They don't know these kids. There's no pride there. They don't care. They're here because, again, in today's world, you've sold the dream of, I'm going to get you to this level of football, and nowhere else can do that. But, you know as well as I do, uh, it don't matter if you play for, some geese of school. If you're a dude, you're a dude, and they're going to find you.
And that leads us into our final segment of the night, and that is coaching in the Twitter X/X age, which kind of ties everything together nicely right here because there's so many street committee guys. There's so many guys running all-star programs and trainers and everything else that are working the backdoor channels to get these kids where they want them to get on these super teams. And that is just one of the very, 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 very small parts of coaching in today's Twitter X/X age. And I am sure that you wouldn't be the executive director of the Georgia Fired Football Coaches Association if you would have been, some of the times you might have been able to navigate those waters a little bit better with the changing times.
If I could have a crystal ball that would have allowed me to see how everything, progressed over these years, I would have started a, elite, prospect camp and charged, $500 a head. They get a T-shirt. We'll time them on a 40 and, tell them that we're going to have a bunch of schools in attendance to recruit them and invite all these schools and put their logos on our banners. And I'm going to label you a elite prospect after my camp. And heck, I might even be the founder of the Hawaii Tiki Bowl over here, right? And I'm going to charge you $2,000, and that doesn't include your dang plane ticket or your way out there or anything, but you're going to leave here saying that you were an all-star game participant. And it's just that, hey, I'm, all glory to God because I got this, offer, or I'm recognized as important or special. And, it's just kind of the culture that the kids have grown up in, and it's not the kids' fault. That's just how they've grown up in this system that, they see all these things on Twitter, and they think that if they don't have that stuff, it doesn't mean they're as good or whatever. And, it's okay to not be as good as somebody. Somebody is always going to be probably better than you at this job or that job or, whatever it is. But I think it's an indictment on, certain coaches, certain programs, when you allow certain kids to throw out huddle highlights that are, well, just flat out not huddle highlights. It's actually one of the oldest pastimes of this organization is going and seeing some of these huddle highlights that are posted. And, the amount of tackles that are made 7 yards downfield that are the first clip is astounding. It's just a basic tackle that, you got drug about 3 yards. Again, there's just certain things that I think trying to navigate that atmosphere and how that stuff works. And to be honest with you, probably the worst thing that has happened, in my opinion, and this organization's opinion over the last several years, it is these 7-on-7 spring teams that, again, that's not football. You should be running track. You should be lifting weights and running track. You can go to, and especially if you're going and doing this with people that are teaching you bad habits, receivers go in there, you're not being physical, you're not having to run the route tree and get, or is it your quarterback who's throwing to you, or are you guys doing this as a mini team? And some parents, there's just so many things that are wrong with it. And, it lumps into the, I'm going to go and pay somebody $500 to do, everyday drills that, my position coach does. But they're telling my kid that he's special and that he coached, this pro quarterback or this D1 kid. And this, if he just keeps coming to me, He's going to be just fine. He should be winning that job. It's got to be the coach's problem. And, so it's just this back and forth of, not letting kids kind of fail and figure out how to, best develop, and the feeling of like, well, if you're not doing this, then you're obviously you're not doing what all the Joneses are doing. Well, I see that this school's promoting their kids in their 7-on-7 league, and this school's doing this and that, and you're not. Why don't you care about my kid? Well, I just don't promote it. That's reality, because I don't approve of it. I don't think he's getting better doing it, and I'm not going to promote it. And I don't think anybody should promote it unless it's in agreement with the school in some way, shape, or form. But JHSA ain't going to allow that. But, the reality is I just think there's so much negativity that stems from the social media world that has bled into parents wasting money and not getting value out of that money. Sending them to these camps and clinics and getting them to say that they ran a 4.340 or 4.440. Guys, listen, you don't run a 4.440. You might want to check that again. There's not a lot of kids up here in North Georgia, especially, that are running 4.4s. Okay, so let's stop lying to kids and making the jobs of the coaches harder.
Well, it goes back to a lot of, I'm curious as the man of constant sorrow to see how the current collegiate football landscape is going to affect a lot of these camps they used to have back in the day, these prospect camps where you were essentially paying the salaries of the assistant coaches and the GAs to make extra money. Who in their right mind would send their child to one of those things now, when they don't really care about recruiting high school kids unless they're the elitist of the elite? And that means they're 6 foot tall plus, or they run ridiculously fast, or they have been on championship teams for 3 or 4 years, and they look the part. Let's be honest, the 5'11" try-hard kid, he can't even get an NAIA offer these days. What is your organization's thoughts on things like that? Because it does tie into the social media and marketing. Like, you see the little fellas out there, they're grinding in their backyard, doing the cone drills in the dirt, and I'm getting better. And I just have always found that comical.
Well, and that's the thing is, I love that kids want to go out there and be better and do stuff on their own. I just think that if you take what the coaches that you have in your building are working with you on in practice, and you do that stuff at home, you don't have to pay $500 to go and do that. You don't have to pay $200 to do that. You can do all that stuff at home. If you want to get better at catching a football, I mean, my gosh, throw and catch a football. Get out there and do that. You want to get better at route running, go out there and run routes and have somebody throw you the ball. But ultimately, when it comes to these prospect camps and things of that nature, it's the need for all these people to, say, hey, if you come to my camp, I'm going to get eyes on you because your coaches aren't going to do it for you. You've got to do this in order to get seen and have a chance to go and play. And a lot of them are just lying to them, saying they're a Division I caliber kid. And in today's college landscape, there's a lot of kids that can't go play NAIA D2, D3. And if they actually went and watched one of those games, like, those kids are still some of the better football players at all of their schools that they were at. All of them. And then you talk about my number one issue is, why can't kids and parents be okay with your kid being just a really good high school football player? If they worry about being a really good high school football player, then everything else will take care of itself. If they can just be present in the moment and be the best high school football player they can, then if they're good enough, they'll get recruited. If they're good enough in the classroom, behavior-wise, and on that football field, they will get recruited. But we got to make it all about all this other stuff. We got to make it all about, well, my kid had a dream to play between the hedges, and I told him if he tried really hard, he could do whatever he wanted to in life. But that's just not true. It's not true. And we got to be truthful with kids. The world needs janitors. The world needs plumbers. The world needs these hardworking kids that understand, that are realistic, that are okay being really good high school football players, and understanding that you're not going and playing on Sundays. So you need to develop a work ethic and a sense of problem solving and a sense of teamwork and how to overcome adversity. That's the stuff that makes high school football great. But we are sitting here making it all individualist. We are all sitting here trying to navigate these kids and make it about, well, so-and-so's got 17 offers. Great. Is he actually going to sign any of those and actually play at that school? Who knows? Who knows? Because we got more people entering a transfer portal than we know what to do. Less and less high school kids are getting, those opportunities now. So I just think we've done a disservice to a lot of the kids at times, and not having them focus on just being the best high school football player they can be. Enjoy the time that you do it. Enjoy being around the people that you're around, and don't sell out and don't listen to all these people that DM you and say your coach isn't going to get you recruited. I mean, I don't know if there's a worse statement that I've heard consistently than, if you're at that school, you're never going to get recruited. You're lying to the kid. And if there's one thing that we at the GAFFCA don't have tolerance for, it's lying to kids. We believe in telling the truth, and the truth sometimes hurts, and people don't like hearing it, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
Well, so, speaking of the truth and people not wanting to hear it, by the time this recording comes out, I'm sure you're going to have done some game notes already. What's on the docket this week for the GAFFCA game notes of the week?
So we're going to cover the lovely game in South Georgia between Valdosta and Lowndes County. We're going to cover, believe we're going to knock out Jackson County Habersham, playing for a region title up here in North Georgia. We're also looking at another private school one between, I believe it's Hebron and Prince. So we've done a Hebron game and hadn't done a Prince game. So might as well sink our teeth into another version of that. And then if we can get everything squared away, I think we're also going to cover the Jasper County and Lamar County 9-0 versus 9-0 game as well.
I'm sure those are going to be bangers, and if people can't laugh at you, they can laugh with you, and I hope they've enjoyed this episode of Sun Coaches Podcast. And I'd like to thank the executive director of the Georgia Association of Fired Football Coaches. I'm sorry, I've screwed that up again. Will you please tell everybody the name of your great organization, sir?
Yeah, we're the Georgia Fire Football Coaches Association, and, we are here for coaches. And, if you ever have any information or want any coverage of a game via the game notes, or need to loop us in on anything, we're all ears and always willing to listen. But I appreciate your time and allowing me to spout off a little bit. But again, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely, anytime, and can't wait to get back with you next week as we discuss the playoffs, the game notes, administrators, and the hot job openings in the state of Georgia. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7